Hey everybody, Thomas Vanderkin here from Lenovo. I'm super excited. We've got Richard Henderson with us. He's the Global Education Solution Director. So we're going to just talk through some questions, kind of hear what Lenovo's doing in education, and then maybe we'll learn something else today new. So hey Richard, thanks for joining.
Yeah, hey, good to be here, Thomas. Thanks for the invite.
So we've been working together for a little while. Can you just kind of start us off, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so Rich Henderson, I'm a North Carolina native. I've been working at Lenovo for about 8 years. And prior to that, I worked in a lot of different education industries. I started out working with autistic students in college, and then I worked as a substitute teacher in Wake County Public Schools, here where the office is located in North Carolina. And then finally, I went and worked for SAS doing curriculum software for about 9 different states. So the first kind of chunk of my career was in the education space. And then I went and worked startup for about 8 years, doing a bunch of different startups. And now I've been able to join both of those passions in my current role at Lenovo doing education solutions.
Well, that's quite an interesting background. I like that you bring the experience from the education world to Lenovo. Any instances of kind of unexpected ways that technology is helping further education?
Well, I mean, the current environment in education right now is just so bizarre, is the only way to describe it. We have those schools around the world that are closed. Half of the world's schools are still closed, with students having to learn remotely. And one thing that we have realized and we know is that remote learning requires technology. So it actually requires more technology to be able to teach students remotely. So we have a core critical role to play in this.
Do you feel like technology and access to technology is equaling the playing field for students in education, or do you think it's actually becoming more disparate and people who are behind are falling further behind?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have had in the world this idea of the homework gap, of the digital divide between students who have access, who have parents that are able to spend time with them. A lot of it is based on where they live and their home environment. So this challenge for technology is actually increasing the digital divide. And so the big push for Lenovo is actually, how do we help schools and students and parents overcome that?
I saw a McKinsey report that said that 2.3 million kids are going to graduate and be underqualified or unqualified for finding a job. It's going to make it very difficult. How are we helping, or how is technology helping equip students to enter the workforce?
Well, I think one of the primary roles of schools is workforce readiness. We might not think about that as parents. I have 4 kids, and they're in different stages, one in college, one in high school, one in middle school, one in elementary school. But if you look globally at the role of schools, it's actually workforce readiness. So what we're doing right now, and I think as everyone at Lenovo is thinking about, how do we prepare students for the next wave? So one of the things we're working on as a proof point of this is we're working in immersive technologies, because AR, VR is being used to train doctors, it's being used to train healthcare professionals and military professionals, and kind of call centers are training their reps in VR so that they can learn empathy. So it's really one of those areas where emerging technologies like VR, AR, AI, these things are being intercepted at the school level to train students for the next jobs that will be here. So in 10 years, what will our students be graduating needing to know? Well, they'll need to know AI skills and how to design and code for a different computational world.
So it's not just laptops Lenovo's providing, it's beyond that. It's software, it's technology, it's AR, VR, it's a whole ecosystem, I guess, for the school environment.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the fourth industrial revolution. We talked about digital transformation, intelligent transformation. Well, like schools right now, that's happening everywhere. It is complete digital transformation. And so to do that, you definitely need our great devices, but where we've been focusing is the software, the services. So how do you keep those devices safe and secure? Cybersecurity, student safeguarding, asset management, mobile device management. It's more than kind of what the device is, how do you use the device and how do you help it achieve your learning outcomes? So we can go, there's a lot of other areas we could go into there, but there's a ton.
So this is a bit personal, but my daughter is a teacher. She teaches AP science and also 7th grade science. My son is a senior in high school, and I've got another son who's a senior in college. And they've both had experiences of either home or going to school and then being pulled right back because it didn't work. And a big part of education is face-to-face, and just, everything beyond, kind of like all of us, beyond what's scheduled, but all the relationships you build. Is that a problem? Are we losing those relationships, and is that going to be a problem for kids as they grow up and get older? And how do we help mitigate that, or even improve on what there was before?
It's really important. So I will say that the social element is something that we are realizing in the education field, that social and emotional learning is just as important, and even more important in some cases. So the way that students interact with their peers is so critical, and the tools that we provide them is also critical. So everyone has their own individual device, but it's really how they interact with their peers through the work that they're doing. So video collaboration tools, we're working on ways to create a hybrid classroom. So there's going to be a scenario, Thomas, where schools will be back in, but there will be some students that don't come back and sit in the classroom. I think this is going to be a long-term trend, that you're going to have students outside the classroom that are joining a classroom session. We're seeing it happen in higher education right now, where students are remote, the professor is in the classroom teaching. Some students are there, but then there's other students that are being brought into the classroom. They're sharing the same screen, they're seeing what's being presented, you can see their faces up on the walls. And then you have this kind of hybrid classroom. And that's the type of solution we're developing for K-12 as well.
Yeah.
We got a dog barking here.
Speaking of work from home, here we go. I have a question for you. So of course, this has been incredibly difficult. However, is there any sense that what we're learning through this time could actually bring on a renaissance in education, really a difference where we could take advantage of what we had, incorporate what we learned, and really build an environment where some kids who might have not fit in, or not, 7 hours a day in school might not have been the right fit for them, where we can create an environment where a lot more kids will have a way to be successful than there was, even a couple years ago.
Yeah, I would say it's not just kids in school. It's kind of everyone. So we see this large trend happening in education, both for students as well as adults, around the skills-based ecosystem. So, I mean, you think about us, right? We went and we had this college degree that got us our first job, but now 20 years later, are we really still leveraging those same skills that we learned in college? No, we're enhancing and improving our skills kind of throughout our lives. So there's this idea of how do we transform our school systems to really be a personalized skill model, a personalized learning experience for our students. And so there is this renaissance. There's this excitement around changing the model to be more personalized, to be more skills-based ecosystem. No longer will you have to go pay, $100,000 to go to a college to get a degree that maybe you don't even use 2 years later. So I do think there's this transformation that's happening in the overall ecosystem of education.
We talked a lot about students, but what about the teachers? I feel like they're being required to do everything they've done before just because that's what expected. But now they also have to do distance learning for students who are home at the same time, or be ready at a moment's notice to go into COVID lockdown, but continue the education, still manage all the cameras now that are in the classroom so kids can watch from home. That seems like an incredible amount of stress and pressure to put on teachers. What do you think about that, and anything Lenovo is doing to help with that?
Yeah, it's a huge burden for teachers right now. They're certainly bearing the brunt of distance learning. A lot of school districts have been doing virtual classes, but now that students are coming back into schools, they're having to manage both an in-class session as well as students that are still connected from home. And so it's doubling their efforts. I've been seeing a lot of teachers struggling with this on Twitter, on social media, and really our role as a technology provider is to help teachers be more effective at their jobs. And we are working on AI-based solutions that can help make more effective decisions for teachers. So I mentioned earlier kind of the device management side. Well, there's also the instruction side. And how do we help teachers with the instructional elements? There's the classroom management. So Lenovo has an offering called LAN School that can help a teacher distribute a class. So whether they're in the class with the teacher or they're connecting from home, they're in the same class session. The teacher can actually control those devices. They can push out content to all those students, make sure that everyone is on task, or they can turn it off and go into free mode and students can find the resources that they need, but it helps them stay focused and engaged. And when you pair that with good content resources that give insights into what students are learning, it does help take the burden off of the teacher to focus on the teaching and the connecting with the students instead of kind of checking the boxes and making sure that the technology is safe.
Yeah, how does Lenovo normally get engaged, or how do they get engaged with your team? Is it the superintendent? Is it the IT team? Is it teachers directly reaching out? How are you bringing what Lenovo's learned from all these different schools to help out individuals, schools?
Yeah, good question. Normally we work with the IT decision maker, and that's been our focus traditionally, is this IT decision maker. We have a customer advisory councils that we work with kind of all over the world in each geography. But increasingly, we're reaching down into the curriculum teams, into the teachers themselves to find out how to best develop the right technology for their needs. And I think that's critical. I think that's an area that we have to continue to focus on, is what can we do to service the teacher who is really our end user using all of our devices. Yeah.
Well, last question here, Richard. I think this has been super interesting, and I know even for me to stop and think about this has been really cool. But what's Lenovo's vision for education? Kind of what's your vision? What are you focusing on in the next few years?
Yeah, so what Lenovo's focusing on the next few years is continuing to focus on core things that are showing the quality and the innovation of our devices. That's our foundational effort, is continue to grow our devices that are exactly what students and teachers need. And then we're growing into adjacent solutions that are helpful in the classroom, like immersive learning with VR. We have a VR classroom offering today. We're offering students the ability to play on an esports team. So you can be on your school esports team and use Legion devices from Lenovo, and we're providing game management and remote deployment of those games across that, and connecting those students to play on the same team. I want to play. Sign me up, coach. And then lastly, we're focusing on the kind of more enhanced, smarter classroom, hybrid classrooms, really investing the technology in the spaces and in the decision making around AI and data and analytics for students and teachers. So it's really that focus on the core, make sure that foundational layer is there and schools can trust Lenovo as an education partner, and then build on that for instructional and decision-making tools.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, my daughter is impacted every day by this technology, and I appreciate it. And of course, all of us either have children or no children or are learners ourselves. So thank you to you and Lenovo for everything you're doing. Any final thoughts or anything you want to add? Anything cool you're working on before we sign off?
Yeah, so I guess my final thought is it's important as a technology provider like Lenovo that we don't forget about our role to help innovate in the macroeconomic issues. So we talk about technology providing that to schools, but technology is really a gateway for students to grow, to learn, to map their own careers. It helps defeat poverty. It helps like bridge these gaps in ability for students to grow and to be productive citizens. So as you think about our role in education, don't forget to volunteer, to give back, to think about how technology can help really focus on these global issues around inequity and equality, and how Lenovo can be a part in helping to change that. So thanks a lot, Thomas. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Richard. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, see ya.